so we always check in with the guy who knows the Jets better than anybody covers the Jets for us. That's Rich Cimini. Rich, how you doing, my friend?
Good afternoon, Michael. Thanks for having me on. Just got out of the locker room, so the timing works out nicely.
All right, so take us in the locker room. Are they upset that Michael Carter got cut? And he was just, by the way, claimed by the Cardinals.
Yeah. So Anthony just informed me that while I was on hold. But, players were surprised. And, just from talking to a few guys in the locker room, I think they were upset by it. Mekhi Becton saying that he was down in the dumps. And another player I talked to, I won't mention his name, just didn't feel it was right, and Saleh addressed it with the team briefly this morning in the team meeting. And, it was a surprise. I mean, Carter was not performing well, so that part of it I get, but he was kind of a around the team. Very popular guy in the locker room, great sense of humor, and so players were really taken aback.
So was it because of the penalties, and specifically the one that really cost them in the game the other night, or was it something else? Or was it what he said? Hey, he's not going to play, so let's go send him someplace where he's got a chance to play.
Yeah, so a few different layers there, Don. Let's peel it back a little bit. Number one, I think they just Izzy Abonaconda on the field. The rookie from Pitt, local kid at a Lincoln High. He's really fast. This offense is so dormant right now, just looking for any spark. They believe he can bring it to them. And Carter had not been playing well. As I said, he just generating much offense at all as a third down back. He wasn't, frankly, a good third down back. I think he was miscast in that role. He didn't catch the ball particularly well, which is kind of an important thing when you're a third down back. And he did have that penalty the other night. Actually, I thought it was a bad call on the illegal chop block. But he was benched after that. He did not go back in the game. So evidently something happened. I don't know if he said something on the sideline with he did have an argument with his running back coach earlier in the year on the sideline, a heated conversation. So I think it was a combination of things, and it was very well known around the building, that Michael Carter was not happy with his playing time and his role. He's been passed over a few times the last few years. Remember the James Robinson trade last year, which turned out to be a bust? And then this year, them bringing Dalvin Cook in was kind of a slap in the face to Michael Carter. So I think it was pretty generally known that he wasn't happy with his role.
Is there anything else going on, Rich, in that running backs room? Because, Brees has obviously been effective, but it seems like we get very little of Dalvin Cook. Carter's been a big disappointment. This was a group we expected to be a strength. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, Brees Hall's having a good year, although the last couple of weeks, there has not been a lot of production from Brees Hall in the running game. He's done some things in the passing game. Running game's kind of slowed down to pretty much a halt. But, the other night I thought Dalvin Cook had a couple of really good rushes.
Yeah.
He looked as fresh as he has all year. Looked like the old Dalvin Cook from some Minnesota stuff. And then he'd only got the ball three times. And
that's what I'm confused about.
Yeah, well, we are too. It didn't seem, look, there were a lot of confusing things about that. Having Garrett Wilson throw a pass after he just injured his elbow on his throwing arm didn't seem like a smart thing to do either. And he showed up on the injury report today with an elbow injury. And, they should have gone to Cook more in the game. I thought, you want to go with the hot hand. And, frankly, I thought he was running the ball better than Brees Hall in the game.
All right, so we were talking about this earlier. Robert Saleh says that when Aaron Rodgers is good to go, he's going to play. And Don brings up the point, I don't think he's going to play if the games don't mean anything. I think that this is a cause celeb for Aaron Rodgers, and he is getting on that field if he can, even if the Jets are 3-10, or 4, 5-10, 5-11, whatever he's playing. What's your take?
Well, he definitely has made this a cause celeb. He's on his platform every Tuesday, trumpeting to the world that he's coming back. So, there's a huge amount of competitive ego and arrogance in this by Rodgers to prove that he can do this. And what Saleh said today, I get it. He has to say that. He doesn't want to piss off Aaron Rodgers, because, they don't want Rodgers to walk away after the season and retire. They want him back for next year. So they want to keep that relationship as strong as possible. But I think if it comes down to that decision, I think the Jets will, especially if they're out of it, I think they're going to sit down and try to present their case to why he should not play this year. I think the rumblings I've heard around here are that they would not play, especially if they're not in it. But, final decision, however, that doesn't mean that they won't try Bobby and present their side of the case before he makes that final decision.
And you could still split the difference, right? You could treat it like a preseason game. He comes back, plays the first couple of series in a meaningless game, proves that he can play, but does the discretion, the better part of valor, comes out of a game that doesn't matter. Like, that could happen, too, and they can make that work.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, he's going to have to practice for a couple of weeks. And, they're going to have a 3-week window with which to, have him practice before they activate him. And so he wants to come back in mid-December. So that means he's got to start practicing real soon. I mean, like right after Thanksgiving to start practicing. And he's not even running yet based on what he's been saying publicly. He's going to be back here at the facility next week on a full-time basis. That's what he said. And so he would have to be practicing pretty quickly after that. But how can you practice if you can't run? So I just wonder about his timetable. Maybe it's a little too ambitious, but, he knows better than anyone. But, yeah, Don, I think he'll practice at some point. But to put him in a game, maybe there's a scenario like you laid out, Don, which is actually makes a lot of sense just to put him in and prove a point that he could get back. But, there's a lot of risk involved. I mean, there's $40 million in guarantee next year that you could be jeopardizing if he re-injures it and can't play next year.
All right, so you look at what's going on with Zach Wilson, and, well, we've been on this train. Why was he the backup quarterback? We're not going to relitigate that. And I don't think coming off last week he should be benched. But let's say he starts this week and he's just dreadful in the first half. Will they ever go to another quarterback, or are they just locked into this guy and they have a point to prove?
Well, I agree with you, Michael. I don't think this was the week to bench him because I think he did some positive things in the game the other night, the last interception notwithstanding. But, it would have to be – I think he'd have to be sabotaging their offense. And by that I mean, like, committing, like, bad interceptions and things of that nature for them to pull him out of the game. I just think they do not want to have to do that. And benching him now – I mean, they have they're going to have in like a 5 to 6 day span because they got the Black Friday game. So I don't really see him getting benched after the Buffalo game because then you're going to start a new quarterback on a short week to face the first place team. I don't see. But if he doesn't get better in the next 2 games, then they'll have that mini bye week before the next game, which I think is Atlanta. That would be the place to do it. But like I said, it would have to get extremely bad for them to play the game. And I think he gives them the best chance to win. I know Jets fans are driving off the right now when they're hearing that. But, what has Tim Boyle ever done, in the league? He's 0-3 as a starter. I mean, that's change for the sake of change, and I don't think that's a healthy thing to do again.
See, that's where I was going to go. The conspiracy theory is somebody is forcing Saleh to play Wilson. But the better question is, why are there no better alternatives? I understand that Aaron Rodgers got hurt. He got hurt in week 1. We've had months here. They went and signed Trevor Cimini. Why? To just not dress and be a part of the practice squad? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense why they weren't aggressive. Never mind getting a veteran backup to be ahead of Wilson at the start of the season. Why didn't they find a better alternative over the last couple of months?
Well, how many teams have a good third-string quarterback? I mean, it's really hard to. I mean, a lot of teams don't even have.
No, but you went and signed Trevor. Was Trevor Cimini the best available quarterback to go sign that you didn't even dress? Like, there wasn't anybody that could leapfrog over Boyle and be an alternative here as we head into Week 11?
Well, I mean, everyone's talking about Josh Dobbs now. What he's done.
How about Carson Wentz or anybody that would at least be a pulse? I don't understand how you sign somebody that couldn't leapfrog over Boyle, unless they're just married to Boyle because he knows the system from Green Bay.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too. Don, I think the mistake was made back in February and March when they decided to make Zach Wilson their number 2 quarterback. I think that's when they should have and got a Jacoby Brissett or Gardner Minshew and said either cut bait with Zach Wilson or give him the third quarterback and say, hey, this is going to be a redshirt year, especially when they went out and got Aaron Rodgers, a 40-year-old guy who there's a chance he might break down. So that's where the mistake by Joe Douglas. And it's really hard to correct that mistake once the season gets started. And they committed to him even after seeing 2 years of substandard quarterback play. They still committed to him as their backup. And the worst case scenario came true on the fourth play of the season. And now they have to live with this guy. Could they have been more aggressive? Carson Wentz's agent did call the Jets. Said, hey, you want to sign my guy? And the Jets said no. So the Josh Dobbs thing, Josh Dobbs does over a sustained period of time. He's had a couple of really good weeks here with Minnesota, but I want to see how that plays out.
Now, Rich, before I let you go, from what it sounds like to my ear, somebody is continuing to try to call you. And I keep hearing that clicking. So if somebody, God forbid, is not dead, that person that keeps calling you should get punched right in the throat by you the next time you see them.
Or a forehead.
I didn't even look at my phone. I was so clued into our conversation here, but I did hear the phone ring. But I want to give you guys my undivided attention.
No, you did a great job.
You're a professional.
You're a total pro. It's this person that keeps calling in. Maybe they know you're on the air. Maybe they're trying to be cute. Punch that person in the throat, Rich. I'm just saying.
Do it.
Okay, I'm sorry about that if it's annoying.
No. That person owes the apology, not you.
I'm shocked that I did not hear.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Oh, I've got the ears of a hawk.
That's not true.
I heard it.
Yeah.
Anthony didn't hear it either. Wow.
Well, I will talk to you soon. I'll be there on Black Friday, so maybe I'll say hello if I see you.
Well, that could be a big game. I mean, believe it or not, if the Bills lose this week, I mean, if the Jets beat the Bills and Miami loses to Vegas, the Jets and Dolphins are playing for first place.
Amazing.
As crazy as that sounds, it's crazy, and that would be a fun situation. But the Jets have to score a touchdown.
Touchdown! I've heard of those.
That helps. Yeah. Thanks, Rich.
That might help. All right, guys. See you soon.
Be
Take
good.
care.
Rich Cimini covers the Jets, has been doing it over 30 years, and does it for us, does it very, very well.